Good evening, City of Rochester. Welcome to this month's Speak to Council session. As a reminder, all speakers have 3 minutes for their comments. If speakers are participating via Zoom, we ask that they address council with the same respect they would expect to avoid the use of profanity. A staff member will notify speakers when they have 30 seconds left, and speakers will be removed from the Zoom call once their time has expired. Staff members will read the first 3 minutes of all written comments submitted. We will now begin our Speak to Council session.
Elisa Coward will be joining us by Zoom.
Good evening. Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm Terlisa Coward. I'm a member of Central Church of Christ at 101 South Plymouth Avenue. And I wanted to speak to ask the city if they will partner with the Central Church of Christ to help the community at large. I know there's a large homeless population here, and there's some over by Nick Tahoe, and we would like to give them blankets and give them gloves and also offer them a hot meal. I know there was a letter written by the city to ask the churches to adopt a school. Minister Florence have adopted School 28, and it asked for mentoring to help with their clothing and help with food. And we're asking if the city can help with the resources to exceed the expectations of the school. I reached out to school number 28 today to find out how many families, if any, are in need of a Christmas basket, and they said approximately 50. So Minister Florence is trying to get together 50 food baskets for those families. But we're asking if the city will actually help us with some resources to help the students. We think that would be much appreciated. And also, regarding the clothing, we have a clothes closet, and we've had 2 coat drives, one last year and we had one this year. And we reached out to the city to ask to help us with the coat distribution. And so far, we haven't received anything from the city. And some of these coats could be going to the children from school number 28. And we've given out approximately 250 coats this year. And we're having another coat distribution on Saturday, December the 19th from 12 to 2. So we're just asking the city to actually maybe reach out to Wegman, reach out to Walmart, reach out to Target, reach out to some agency to help us with the children. And if we're actually helping with lunches or helping with food, it would be greatly appreciated if the city would help us to do what they're asking us to do. And in the letter, it reads that you're giving the worship places an opportunity to help the schools, but the Central Church of Christ have been doing this for more than 50 years. And we're just asking that the city partner with us and reach out to the Greek organizations, because the city has a very powerful voice. And the Greek organizations, some of them will actually say, we're giving our coats to the city. So we're asking the city to ask the Greek organization to share those coats with us. And I just want to say, thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it. And this is on behalf of Central Church of Christ.
Elizabeth McGriff, she'll be joining us by Zoom.
She's not in the waiting room, but if she does appear, we'll loop back to her.
Okay, how about Allie Dentinger?
Allie, you can begin speaking and I'll start your time.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So good evening, council. So last month when I spoke to you, we were up to 54 evictions that had been filed in Rochester City Court. Since then, the number of eviction warrants since the moratorium has been lifted is now up to 105. 66 of them are for non-payments. 39 of them are from holdovers. I think the only thing that I've said more than we need an eviction moratorium is we need good cause eviction protections, because all of those tenants should have the right to renew their lease. And if there is a specific issue, that it can be worked out, but that's not what's happening. The holdover is being filed, they're having a warrant signed because that's the law. So it's estimated by a local rental assistance provider that there is 15 to 20,000 families behind on their rent in the city of Rochester. Funding is available. There is actually a fair amount of it, but there are so many hoops to jump through that it's not getting in the hands of tenants and it's not getting in the hands of landlords. So as you guys know, eviction cases are on the rise, but so is COVID. We have the highest positive rate in the state, but we also have the most number of eviction warrants being signed in the state. I don't know if you guys realize that not all municipalities around the state are hearing eviction cases. And in Rochester, we're just cranking them out. So the eviction crisis is already inhumane, and we know housing is healthcare. And let's be honest, homeless can't stay home. People being evicted are becoming homeless. So we need a full and comprehensive eviction moratorium. That's not a new problem, and we can't wait until 2021 to solve it right here, right now. We can figure out how to pay for it in 2021 under a new state legislature and a new president. But I'm asking, and I'm not going to be alone in this ask, I'm asking as a member of the Citywide Tenant Union, St. Joseph's House of Hospitality, and the Rochester Housing Justice Alliance for this legislative body to come together probably today, tomorrow, and write a letter to Albany and ask them to pass the Emergency Housing Stability and Displacement Prevention Act that's from Senator Myrie and Assemblymember Reyes. We need this right here, right now. Rochester can't wait. New Yorkers can't wait. And as the municipality that has the number one for eviction warrant signed, we need your leadership. So I'm happy to talk more through any of this data. If you're wondering where I'm getting it, feel free to reach out directly to me or any other members of the Citywide Tenant Union. Thank you guys for your time, and please, please, please advocate for Rochester.
Roger Finkel.
City council members, please use what influence you have and write a joint letter to Andrea Stewart Cousins and Carl Hasty supporting the Emergency Housing Stability and Displacement Prevention Act. This is life or death for the people you serve. You don't need me to tell you that evictions are already happening in Rochester and more families are being threatened with eviction every day. You have significantly more bargaining power than the activists in Rochester that you regularly discredit, so use it. We'll all be living in food link if you don't.
Peter Peters.
My organization, Reach Advocacy, has spent the past 5 years providing emergency shelter to some of the 800 housing deprived men and women of our region. One of the lessons we have learned in serving this population is that there are many people in our community who are housing vulnerable. The Rochester Community Foundation reports that over 50% of our households are rent burdened. COVID-19 has exacerbated this, especially among the working poor of our community. This level of housing vulnerability is all of our problem. We cannot ignore it. Council must act now to help keep people safe and sheltered. Here is an immediate action Council can take. The governor's moratorium on evictions ends at the end of the month. I urge Council to do all within its power to support the passage of the Emergency Housing Stability and Displacement Prevention Act, Bill number A10827 and S8667. Rochester is currently experiencing a higher caseload of eviction hearings than almost any city in the state. This bill will hold safe renters who are unable to pay their rent during this extended period of the current pandemic. No one should be put out into the cold during this extraordinary season. Please show the humanity of this city by acting in support of the most vulnerable among us. Though we are reminded daily that we are all in this together, we also know that those most likely to be affected by this pandemic are the poor, especially brown and Black people. We cannot add to their burden by allowing them to be cast out of their homes. As the leaders of this city, I urge you to support this bill and to extend the eviction moratorium.
Patrick Burns by Zoom.
Patrick, you can begin speaking and I'll start your time.
All right. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Patrick Burns. I am a leader of Vocal New York, a partner organization of Rochester Housing Justice Alliance. Currently, there are over 100 active cases of eviction court here in Rochester. I know what it's like to be evicted. I was experiencing financial hardship. I was laid off, like so many others during this COVID-induced economic crisis. The sheriff came and removed me from my place that I had been living for 5 years. All of my things, all of my belongings, my animals were literally thrown on the side of the road. I lived in that place for 5 years. I had 5 years worth of belongings just tossed aside. I had no money, no car, and little support. I could only salvage what I could carry. Needless to say, I ended up homeless. There's a housing crisis throughout New York State that is impacting Rochester specifically. The Rochester Housing Justice Alliance is asking you, all of the city council, to support the citizens of Rochester and write a letter to Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins and House Speaker Carl Hastings, asking them to support the eviction moratorium bill introduced by Rays and Myrie. That is all I have. Thank you.
Susanna Moore.
Good evening, Council. To get right down to it, we need and demand your help. We are living in unprecedented times. There have been hundreds of thousands of deaths throughout our country. We have the highest unemployment rate since the Great Depression, and our federal government is not giving us the help we need and deserve. Over 100 tenants in Rochester are facing active evictions during a cold winter and a global pandemic. Many landlords are not even renting units right now, making life just that much harder for displaced city residents. We need the courts closed, we need an eviction moratorium, and we need the Emergency Housing Stability and Displacement Prevention Act signed into effect. We must stop all evictions immediately. We must stop our city's government's appalling behavior in the face of an indescribably dark and difficult global pandemic. Thank you.
Wanda Cooper, voicemail.
One second.
Hi, yes, my name is Wanda Cooper. I'm calling about the eviction process. I don't think nobody should be evicted due to what we've got going on in the economy with the COVID and things like that. Everybody's on hard times. So everybody deserves a chance to have somewhere to live, and it's also cold out. It's not right to be doing evictions at this time of need. And the other thing is also the slumlords in our community. We need to have it set in place where if the landlords are not fixing up the buildings and doing what they need to do about the property that we live in, we should be able to evict our landlords and take over the property ourselves and maintain them ourselves, because it's only fair. If you're not taking care of us, why should we continue to pay you for not being taken care of? So we should have a right to take the property and redevelop the property and own the property for ourselves. I'm just saying fair is fair. Fair don't wrong nobody. Just let's do this thing the right way, because there's a lot of people out there suffering that shouldn't have to. Thank you. Y'all have a blessed day.
Kevin Aiken, Zoom.
Hello, I'm Kevin Aiken, a leader of Vocal New York, a partner organization of the Rochester Housing Justice Alliance. In Rochester, it's hard to find decent, affordable housing. If the housing is decent, it's not affordable. If the housing is affordable, it's not decent. In Western New York, Rochester and Monroe County have not only failed in having enough beds for the homeless, but we also have high rates of eviction. This problem existed before COVID-19. In Rochester, 62% of the households led by people of color are heavily rent burdened. That percentage is one of the highest in the state. Add to that, and to add that problem, we have the highest rates of poverty. We must do better. Most residents in the city live in poor or substandard housing, and now in the midst of the COVID-19, we're pressed with evictions. There is a housing crisis throughout New York State that has impacted Rochester. The Rochester Housing Justice Alliance is asking you, all of you in the City Council, to support the city of Rochester and write a letter to Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins and House Speaker Leader Carl Hastings, asking them to support the eviction moratorium bill introduced by Reyes and Murray. Thank you.
Daniel Brotman.
I'm writing in support of the Emergency Housing Stability and Displacement Prevention Act. It is unconscionable to me that our state is allowing evictions to continue during this time, when so many families are out of work due to no fault of their own. Are we really going to stand by and do nothing as men, women, and children are forcibly removed from their homes as we enter the heart of winter and COVID cases have never been higher? This bill's passage will literally save lives, save families, save relationships. It will protect children from trauma. It is our moral responsibility. I am asking that the Rochester City Council write a joint letter to Andrea Stewart Cousins and Carl Heastie in support of this bill.
Tom Silva.
Hello, I am writing to urge City Council members to write a joint letter to State Andrea Stewart Cousins and Carl Heastie in support of the Emergency Housing Stability and Displacement Prevention Act. This act will prevent the eviction of any residential or commercial tenant and prohibit the issuance of a judgment of possession against a residential or commercial tenant or other lawful occupants, or foreclosure of any residential or commercial property for up to a year after the end of the COVID emergency. The current eviction protections put in place by the CDC and the state legislature and extended by Governor Cuomo are incomplete and temporary responses to a major crisis. Both protections only offer tenants an affirmative defense against eviction if they can provide proof of hardship due to COVID. However, for tenants whose case is not compelling enough to a judge, or for a tenant whose lease is ending, these protections will leave them out in the cold. Equally importantly, these protections create limited solutions for individuals, not a long-term collective solution. As the CDC order and the Tenant Safe Harbor Act are both set to expire on January 1st, New York State has the opportunity to start the new year with a true eviction moratorium that protects all tenants. There are additional pieces of legislation in motion that will work to make landlords whole and prioritize housing the homeless that I would encourage you to support as well. Wishing you all happy holidays in the comfort of your homes and hoping you will advocate for policies that allow all tenants to remain in their homes as well.
Lyle Coleman, voicemail.
Hi, my name is Lisa Coleman. I'm a City of Rochester resident, and I am calling and urging City Council to write a joint letter to Andrea Stewart Cousins and Carl Heastie in support of Emergency Housing Stability and Displacement Prevention Act. That's bill number A10827/S8667 in the Senate. So the reason that I support this bill is because I believe that housing is a human right. We are facing just an absolute disaster of evictions right now in the city. I don't even know what the count is up to anymore. We passed the 100 mark, and I feel like I've just been running since October 1st. So I would just there's more that the city council can be doing. We need to pass good cause eviction. So many of these evictions that are happening are holdover evictions. You know, they are people who are losing out on their homes during the pandemic because their lease is up, or you know, there's just so many different reasons that people are being put out of their homes and are slipping through the cracks in our systems. And the eviction prevention pilot initiative is stopping. So I'm just calling and honestly begging, like, please write this joint letter. Please do everything you can to demand an eviction moratorium and the cancellation of rent and mortgages. We desperately need it in this community, and we need good cause eviction to put some protections in place for the most vulnerable. I know that there's a lot of confusion about what good cause eviction means, but please, you know, spend some time really looking at the policy and just please, thank you.
Cyclone Woods by Zoom.
Hi.
You can begin speaking and I'll start your time.
Okay. My name is Cyclone Woods. I'm a leader of Vocal New York, a partner organizer with the Rochester Housing Justice Alliance. Before I lived in the shelter, I was a renter with my own apartment. I was evicted illegally. The landlord came to my apartment and gave me 1 hour to evacuate. Fearing the police, I was forced to take what I had and enter the shelter system. Many people I know are renters. When you are a renter, your fate is at the hands of the mortgage holders, unless there are rights to protect us. The good cause eviction bill, not yet passed by the state, would have helped my case. Until we have good causes evictions, we need better tent rights. We need the evacuation monitored.
Are you
Okay,
all
thank
set,
you.
ma'am?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Reedy Singh by Zoom.
You can begin speaking and I'll start your time.
Good evening.
Oh, there you are.
Good evening. I am speaking today to ask Council to write a joint letter to Andrea Stewart Cousins and Carl Hasty supporting the Emergency Housing Stability and Displacement Prevention Act. I also ask Council to pass good cause evictions locally to protect tenants during the pandemic and beyond. The eviction crisis is a public health crisis. A recent public health study found that evictions in the United States are responsible for over 400,000 COVID cases and over 10,000 deaths from the virus. When people are evicted, they couch surf, go to shelters, or end up on the streets, thus spreading the virus. I spoke to a woman a month ago who was illegally evicted from her apartment, couch surfing with her 2-year-old and finding herself unable to find new housing. She and her family are at serious risk. This is also a racial justice issue. I've been reaching out to tenants facing evictions with the tenant union since November, and every single person I've spoken with except for one was Black. Our eviction crisis and the pandemic are disproportionately impacting our Black community members, and we cannot sit idly by as this happens. Our local tenant protections are not enough. Several people who I spoke with didn't even know that they had court dates or that eviction court reopened. They didn't receive notice, missed their court dates, and then had eviction warrants signed. The Tenant Defense Project could not step in for these cases, and this is simply unfair. The Eviction Protection Pilot Initiative has also been insufficient in preventing evictions. Too many tenants either didn't qualify or didn't know how to access the funds. Some tenants told me that they were turned away because their homes had code violations, when those were the faults of the landlords and not the tenants. Soon, those eviction protection funds will expire and there will be nowhere left for tenants to turn. We need City Council to take action. Tenants need real protection and we cannot let anyone fall through the cracks. Please push our state lawmakers to pass the Emergency Housing Stability and Displacement Prevention Act, and please pass good cause evictions locally. Thank you.
Barbara Rivera.
My name is Barbara Rivera, and I'm an organizer for the Citywide Tenant Union. As you know, over 100 eviction warrants have been issued since the moratorium expired in October, not counting the hundreds of illegal lockouts already happening as we speak. As I continue working with tenants to fight their evictions, I'm hearing the same things from each one. They are unable to find any housing because landlords aren't renting their properties. So folks are forced to deal with the decision to go to a homeless shelter or an already burdened household dealing with COVID hardships. I want to thank City Councilwoman Lachey Harris for working with Chris Green on Brown Street to find him another place to go and reaching out to landlords to try to make this happen. You saw firsthand how hard it is to find a landlord that is willing to rent their properties. That is what the majority of tenants have been facing during this pandemic. This is why we need structural change. Even with help from a council person, we can't find housing for this young man. Keeping our community safe and housed should be as clear as ever. I hope as each person speaks tonight on how important our housing is and how important it is for us to keep people in their homes. Winter is here, eviction numbers are rising, and so are COVID numbers, and we are headed to another shutdown. We need the ETPA, we need good cause, and we need the courts to be shut down. So City Council, I ask you to write a joint letter to Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Carl Heastie in support of the Emergency Housing Stability Displacement Prevention Act, Bill number A10827 and S8667, introduced by Assemblymember Reyes and Senator Zelnor Myrie.
Elizabeth McGriff by Zoom.
She's connecting to audio. One second.
Hi, my name is Les, and I'm with the Citywide Tenant Union.
She's connecting to audio. One second.
Okay. Am I connected?
You are, but I believe you have the YouTube stream playing and you might hear a feedback, so you just need to mute that.
I'm not exactly sure how to do that.
Is it up on
Hi,
YouTube?
my name is Les, and I'm with the Citywide Tenant Union.
She's connecting to
Hey, Elizabeth, just turn the YouTube off for a second. Just click off of YouTube for a second. You can go back to it later.
You are, but I believe you have the YouTube stream playing and you might hear a feedback, so you just need to mute that.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure how to do that.
Is it up on YouTube?
My name is Les, and I'm with the Citywide Tenant Union.
She's connecting to
Hey, Elizabeth, just turn the YouTube off for a second. Just click off of YouTube for a second. You can go back to it later.
You are, but I believe you have the YouTube stream playing and you might hear a feedback.
Is it off now?
Mute that. I don't think so. I can still hear something.
I think it's off. Oh, she muted.
I haven't started her time yet, so once it's all settled, we'll start her time.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I apologize for that.
No problem.
But one of the things that's been happening in our community, there's been a lot of illegal evictions. A lot of tenants have been illegally locked out of their apartments and their homes. And so one of the things we've been pushing for is, you know, for the police to be involved to let them in their homes. So with this pandemic, it has put people in a lot of positions that we really didn't expect at this time. Nobody was expecting to lose their job. Nobody was expecting to get behind in the rent. So in that situation, this is a time when we really need our leaders to take control over this situation and put something in place to protect renters. Like you heard some folks say, majority of the outreach has been going out to Black and brown people in our community. So these are the folks that are suffering the most under this pandemic. And even for housing, Barbara Rivera mentioned Chris Brown. He's been trying to move out of his apartment, but it's been very difficult to find housing in his price range. A lot of the places are asking for thousands of dollars so we had a housing crisis prior to COVID. COVID is only exacerbating it. It's only making it worse. We have a number of people that are just losing their housing. They're going to the streets because they have no other place to go. And so we need a solution. We need City Council to write letters of support for Carl Hastings' bill and for and also one of the things that was put on the back burner was the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. This is an act that would stop and level the playing field as far as rent for tenants, and it would offer an opportunity for rents to stay stable. And when the landlords don't do what they're supposed to do, then the tenant could get a rent reduction in their rent, and then that landlord will have to do the repairs and then apply to the state to have their rent moved up at
30
what
seconds.
it was. So those are the things that we're asking for City Council. We want a plan that's going to meet the needs of the people that live in this community. We want a plan that's going to help people stay in their homes. We want to stop the evictions, stop the evictions totally until we figure it out in our community so people aren't displaced. It takes a lot of money to house a person that is displaced. It takes more money than just to give them an apartment and have a roof over their head on a state level. So those are the things that we're asking for our elected officials.
There are no more speakers.
Before I turn over to Madam President, I just would like to thank all of our speakers for tonight. And I'd like to make this disclaimer. During our Speak to Council sessions, unfortunately, the council is not allowed to respond to the comments of the speakers. This session is designed for us to hear from the constituents, not to speak back. So for those who may be listening and wondering why we're not responding to the speakers, it's our practice not to respond to the speakers during the Speak to Council session. Thank you. Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And that's a very good point. I think we'll put that in our script going forward, because I'm sure that folk are wondering why we don't say anything. So thank you so much for providing that information, and thank all of you who participated. This concludes our Speak to Council session for December. We will meet at 7:30 p.m. to conduct the full council for this month.